Today's video, guys, I'm installing this metal roof for my 10 by 10 shed. Listen, here's the bottom line. It costs about $500 today's material, but it's a 50-year roof with almost zero maintenance. And it only took me a half a day to get this installed. I did run into a few problems, so I'm gonna share all that information with you in today's video. So we've got to put in some beams and some metal sheeting. Going with a real traditional sheet metal good today. It's very flexible and easy to work with. We're gonna show you all the tips and tricks. And one more thing, when you go to order that stuff, make sure you order it from a local source because you can get it delivered within a week. These are in the wrong place. This is just temporary till we got our sheathing on. We're gonna remove them and relocate. The bit that comes in the box for your structural screws is exactly the same bit as it takes to install the screws for your sheet metal. So you don't have to go out and buy any new hardware. First of all, before we get started, it's important to know you want this material on site before you frame your roof. The goal here, and I'm just gonna walk you through the basic building process. The sheet metal is gonna start on one side. We're gonna have it sitting right on the edge of our roof, and then I'm gonna cap it with a 1x6 in cedar. You're gonna wanna have one rafter every 2 ribs, all right? We're gonna go full length. We're not gonna cross beam. Wood's too expensive for that nonsense right now. So we're just gonna put in 1 rib for every 2 joints, and then every piece is gonna overlap a second joint, okay? So when we screw it together, it'll be going through 2 pieces. That's the basic concept. It comes 12 feet long. I was gonna get it custom ordered, but I didn't really have the measurement when I ordered it, so I got the whole bloody thing. So I'm gonna change out my skill saw to this 7 1/4. Thanks, Matt. And we're just gonna cut it all once at the same time, once I finally get my measurement done. But right now what I wanna do is I just wanna get my measurement from here to here to here, get the first 3 pieces lined up, get up on the ladder, get that all established, get this cut, and then we'll just assemble it. You're gonna love it. I got a system here that allows us to have no need to cut the front angle on an angle, okay? We're gonna build it special to keep the water out. We're gonna get it sealed up with some polyurethane. This is a pretty simple build. We should get this done probably in the next 30 minutes. What I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna set this cut off of plywood here with my clamps for 2 reasons. It is really hard when you're cutting metal straight up and down these grooves to keep it straight. And when you start going all over the place, you end up with a huge bloody mess. There we go. So when I put my saw guard with my black mark on it where I cut, I can actually have that right at the edge. This little foot goes right on the edge of my plywood, and then I cut that straight. The other thing this does is allows me to put my weight on it. This plywood actually transfers weight to every one of these ribs. So now I can stand on my cutting material, all right? So I can stand over top of it, and I don't have to be reaching and doing weird things. That's all there is to it. Now, I'm gonna be cutting a total thickness. I got a 2x4 underneath here, so I got lots of room. Now I'm gonna measure my thickness, 1.5 inches. Want to set my wheel just about 1.75 inches. A little deeper than what I need, but whenever you're cutting through metal, you are gonna create a lot of heat. If my wheel is just penetrating the steel, that's great. If I have it going 1.5 inches past, then there's a whole lot more of this wheel that's rubbing up against the metal surface and overheating. Here goes everything. Perfect every time. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut pressure treated 5/4 board, which is actually 1 inch thick. I know, it's weird our world, but I'm gonna laminate the outside of the shed. And I'm gonna follow the same angle cut that we have. I kept my template, all right? And I'm gonna translate that angle top and bottom. I'm gonna draw it out. And then I'm going to cut this board in half using my skill saw. I'm gonna show you that technique as well. And then I'm gonna cut the rest of these rafters, and we're going to measure off the gapping that we need from one rib to the next on my header, and then put up these brackets, and then we will just drop in all of the 2x4s that we need to support it. Nice and simple. What I'm gonna do with this though, because this is gonna be going on the outside of the building, it's on the outside of the skin, I'm gonna cut it to install it, cut some kerf lines, some relief cuts in it. That way, if any of the water gets past all my defenses that I'm gonna be building in this system, it can escape on the outside of the building and not have to dry into the building. Makes sense? If you're going to build something for 50 years, you better think about what about on those really, really windy days, or if somebody forgets to check the caulking joint up there 10, 20 years from now. You know, what's the lifespan of this thing? Again, it's the same size as my rafters, which were 91 1/4. So there's my quarter mark. And here is my angle. And this can be just a hair shorter, so this is not going to be visible from the outside. We're going to cap it all later. So I know this is one of those things. It's like, what the hell is he doing? When I go to assemble it all, it'll all make sense. Okay, but I've got to do a lot of preparation before we do the assembly. So we're going to do a French table saw today, which basically is an on-site way to use your skill saw to rip materials down. And all we do, screw it down, about 30% of the meat on your surface. This board is 5 1/2, which means 2 1/4 is where I want to be. This plate's 1 1/2, 2 1/4, there's 2 1/4. From the cutting line to 2 1/4. I'm gonna pull this back. I'm gonna set my blade in the middle. I'm gonna put my finger right here. See that? Stop telling me this is dangerous. I'm nowhere near the blade. There, twice as much material now. Who needs a table saw? So, before I can install this board, remember I told you I needed relief cuts. I don't want them very thick though. I mean like just 1/4 inch or so. Enough so that water can drain if I get bulk water trapped in behind that. And we're just gonna run it, watch out for your screws, just run a cut every 6 inches or so. There, that's good enough. Now, I'm going to put one in the middle. Let's go hang the sucker. And I am vertically challenged, so I will be using a ladder for this. So, when I bring my roof material to this edge, okay, right here, after that, I'm going to cap this with a cedar. It's a 1x6, high and low, all right? And that gives me a surface where the metal's made contact with the wood that I can put my exterior sealant on it. But if the sealant fails, these relief cuts give an opportunity for the water to exit outside of the shed. And then if that fails and it crawls underneath, there's still relief cuts in the siding on the outside. We just want to make sure that if water gets in behind here, and doesn't get the right regular maintenance, that this roof is going to last 50 years no matter what. So a little bit of thought goes a long way here, including the fact that I do not have a magnetic bit. All right. Now we've got a point to measure from. We can run along and mark all of the rib lines of our metal roof. I've decided that since there's a new rib every 9 inches, my only option is to either go every 9 or every 18. Now, if I go every 18, it's most likely going to just be fine, but that offers a little bit too much deflection in the wintertime, and I don't want to risk my sealant coming loose. So I'm going to put a 2x4 every 9 inches across this top here. It's going to seem like overkill, but the only other option is to put them every 16 and then wood on top of that going horizontally. So that's just too much wood. We'll keep it simple today. All right, so here's the simplicity of this. We have the first few inches is all wood, okay? And that's gonna get screwed on right here. Then from that location, I wanna have a screw here and here and here. Make sense? Right? So everything is nicely supported. So what I gotta do is I gotta get the first location, which is different than everything else. First one is gonna go at 11 1/2. All right? And then every other location after that will be 9 inches on center. All right? That should make that a little easier to understand. Now you know what I'm doing. I gotta go put that information up top. This is the center of my first one. And then at 9 inches is the next one, 18 inches is the next one, and that continues. All right, makes sense? Now these are only 3 feet wide, each panel, right? So 3 feet and change, I believe, is what that is. Here's my problem. These panels are 3 feet wide. So in a perfect world, you've got lumber going this way and then this way. And so then you can screw in on that horizontal anywhere you want to keep everything nice and tight. We're saving ourselves a little material and a little buildup, and we're just gonna go one direction. So I gotta measure from the outside, which I've established now, to, I want my last stud, we'll call it a rafter. I want my last rafter right here. I'm gonna go with that section of the panel. Now they're 9 inches apart, so my first one is actually, I'm gonna go 8.5 here. And then every 9 inches after that. All right, I originally was just gonna go with this panel, but you can see I'd have this huge dangling piece in the ceiling, and I don't wanna have that ugliness, so we're gonna go this way. Now I gotta change my measurements. Okay, so that's 8.5. That's still 4 3/4, it hasn't changed. 1/4, so here's my new line. Well, I marked all that up for nothing then, didn't I? Okay. Now, 3 feet goes to there. Good, that makes more sense. Do the same thing on the other end. 4 1/4. Just there. There. Oh, that seems a little more dangerous than it needs to be. I'm just gonna set them, and then as I screw them in place, I'll move them over. So I'm gonna go in reverse. I'm gonna start like this straight, then I go in reverse, and then I burn the angle that I want, then I drive forward. We're gonna do that again, just so you can see that, because this is a nice trick. Okay, that never slips out that way. Now we'll go forward. Whoop. Here we are. Because we're putting on metal, we need to have wood solid away across to close all these gaps off. So I got to cut a series of blocks that go in that gap, so that when we set the metal on, we actually have a foam gasket that we can stuff in there as well to keep the bugs from hibernating and growing and doing what bugs do in the spring inside the roof, right? We don't want to encourage them to live in our roof. Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm going to put this bracket up, screw it in from the side first. Now the reason I'm using this particular hardware is, again, it's just in a few locations. It really holds this thing together so that there isn't any incredible amount of stress put on all the screws holding the rafters in. 3 brackets on each wall is more than enough structural support to keep this from toppling over. It's overkill, and I don't mind a little overkill, especially when you want something to last for a while. Okay. And then you're ready to drive it. It never splits, it never falls out. It's perfect every time. Ready for the first piece of sheet metal. So here we go, we got this lined up. Just wanted to demonstrate. You can see that I'm going to be right beside the mount, right beside the ribs when I put my screw lines in, okay? And that's going to work great. I'm going to come up flush to the edge, make sure I'm somewhat square. I'm going to get my first one right in here just so we can pivot and twist if we need to. You'll notice that there's also the same colored washer, okay, that comes with the screw. If you've never worked with this material before, the guy that supplies the screws, comes all together. Okay, and you can get as much compression there as you want. There we go. Now that's not going anywhere, right? We just want to make sure it's nice and square. When you're working with sheet metal, best to be smart. Just want to make sure that I'll be able to lean across and get all of these screws in. and try to keep them in a straight line, so you don't want this looking like hell to the neighbors. They're so kind, they never cut the grass when we're out here filming, so we'll make sure it looks good for them too. All right. Okay. Make sure I flatten that washer out real good. There we go. Okay. Whew. Now, I'm basically going to put, basically every 2 feet, I'm going to put a row of screws. Okay. And I'm going to just continue doing this and sticking this all on. Do a little time lapse here. When we come back, we're going to show you how to cap all of your edges and seal this up. So the trick here with cutting sheet metal or aluminum is the same thing. You score it with your knife, then you fold it back over on the score. The more you flatten it, the easier it is to break when it comes back the other way. That's nice. And then you simply bend it back the other way and it tears right off. Yeah. 15. Okay, so now we got the roof basically on. Yay. We have to finish skinning the rest of the building. My entire design revolves around the idea of having a piece of pressure treated as a perimeter board and then a cedar board over top of that that's twice as big that goes above and beneath both of those surfaces. So when you look at the shed, your overhang is almost non-existent, but it's kind of a sharp look. The cedar is going to be raised off the surface, and then that gives me the ability to cap it all. All right, so what I did, guys, is I just tacked up a block at the other end. I'm going to put the face on last, but I need to have an end stop there. So I'm going to be dropping in this piece of cedar here, 2 inches off. There we go. All right. And I'm just screwing right into the existing pressure treated lumber. And now the finishing touch. We're going to throw on our exterior sealant. Yep, got a hole. This is colored. Now, if you're not sure where to find this stuff, pretty sure I got this at the Home Depot here in Canada. They're going to have an exterior caulking. You want something that is rated for exterior doors and windows. It's got like 1400% stretchability. Good to see a wasp around here. Always makes me comfortable. And basically the idea here is we're going to bridge the gap from the wood to the metal. So during the hot and cold, because metal does have expansion and contraction, this is going to perform and keep that seal up. Once we've trimmed all 3 sides, we're basically done here. So let me just show you real quick. This is not the time to be cheap. There we go. Okay, now that's a decent bead of caulking, right? Check this out. You don't want to go down there when you're done and use your finger to make that clean. That's not very healthy. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cut this off much more aggressively, a much wider bead. Okay? Now, this is how you want to caulk. You want to have the tube pressed up against your material, and then it does all the leveling for you. All right? That gets you a great look, a nice wide seal. I'm at least 1/4 inch or more on each side of that material off the gap. You just got to maintain pressure and run it up there. Now you don't need to use your fingers and risk slicing your hand open. This is not a race. This particular moment here, this is about perfection. This is the difference between 50 or 25 years.